Vote for we and we will set you free. Anywhere you turn, somebody chanting the we. Somebody promising jobs for all, while some renting gun to make other people ball. But somebody promising more police car. Somebody going to take the country far. Somebody putting all the bandits away. He said, if they do the crime, they're going to damn well pay. But somebody promising a human right. Like somebody threatening to put out your light. The more people with little Trinidad boys. A bullet start to whine and put an end to the joy. Now the lion call for the mama to born. The Nike gone, the gold teeth pawn. You see, they want their pocket full with blue silk. They want the statue drinking full green milk. The little red silk is not their true friend. The blue one have to extra north on the end. So a tag on the toe is now the ticket to hell. But look where we reach, well, and you're a madman, boy. As he spread out on the wall, we say, this is it, this is it, I've been here. No time to give up, brother, no time to quit. A chant of a madman. In this tale from a strange land, it was the chant of a madman, Lord. Give me my only salvation. I say the chant of a madman. In this tale from a strange land, maybe the chant of the madman, Lord, is the only solution. I don't know. Why-yo? Why-yo? Oh, mama, go, baby. Anyway, you got somebody chanting the we. Vote for we and we go set you free. Somebody promising natural law. Fly like a yogi, end all the war. Seek inner peace, end all the pain. The same woman promising to go down again. Somebody promising to run all the bread. Somebody pushing a world-class head. Somebody clean out the weed well fast. Somebody cleaning out the weed well fast. But somebody letting the cocaine pass. 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 Somebody promised to abolish the tax. Somebody promising to give we the facts. Somebody promising to clean up this land. But in this clean land, rat killing man, we bright little youths going to waste. Somebody binge the smile on their face. Somebody take one love off the shelf. Then the one boys start to sell out themselves. Somebody going to end all this talk about race. But they can't tell me that with a straight face. Big people dying, the crime can't solve. A madman rant is the only result. I am the madman boy. As he lie here on the way. We say, this is it, this is it, this is it, that's it. No time to give up, brother, no time to quit. A chant of a madman. In this tale from a strange land, it was the chant of a madman, Lord, the only salvation. I said the chant of a madman. In this tale from a strange land, maybe the chant of a madman, Lord, the only solution. I don't know. Why-yo? Why-yo? Oh, mama. Oh, mama.
Yes. The chant of the madman is the only solution. David Rudder, King David Rudder, the poet and philosopher of modern Kaiso, the chant of the madman is the only solution. You would think that David Rudd is talking about Guyana. He's talking about our Caribbean. And he sang that calypso long before the onset of the 2020 PPP. The imagination and the capacity of the Calypsonian to read our society, not only in its present and not only reflecting on its past, but also reading our society as it moves into the future. Somebody cleaning out the weed well fast. Vote for we and we will set you free. Somebody telling me that with a straight face. Somebody said they will end all this talk about race. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Lynette Greenwood, my countrywoman, Changi. Good evening to you, Congo people, Annandale, nice people. Had a chance to catch up with a lot of the Congo people recently at the funeral of my friend Kidor, Congo Bay, and when Congo Creole go away, they just come out in their numbers. Good evening to all of you from the Buxton, Annandale, Friendship, Vigilance, Strathspey. The thing getting big now with all these housing schemes. And the thing is, the housing schemes are joining the old Buxton, but when the people move into the housing scheme, they're still calling the housing scheme Buxton. So, so now you have to talk about the greater Buxton, right? You talk about the greater Georgetown area, or the greater Linden area, people that say Region 10, they meet everything, Wisma Mackenzie, up the river, down the river, back of the wall, Block 22 in the house, almost every night here. Well, that's what's happening now. We have these villages with these big schemes. You have, Haslington new scheme, and all of that. A lot of changes to the geography and challenges for the name. Plaisance in the house. The struggle goes on. Little Plaisance in the house. And our brother, Dr. Adams, is back, and he got some Plaisance connection. His wife is from Plaisance, and in fact, he was away because his wife had bereavement in the family. So them is Plaisance people. Yes, Block 22 is watching. Trust me. Yes, Block 22, we trust you, and I ain't getting it wrong this time at all. If there's Block 22, they're going to be Block 21 and Block 20. I'll ask Doc, because he's the Linden specialist here. Good evening to you, Lynette Haynes. Vibert White, who is from Grove. And Grove itself is not what you used to hear and see long time with Grove. When you're driving past Grove now, it takes you as much time to drive through Grove as it will take you to get from Grove to the bridge. The bridge place there at Echoes, because Grove now is a little town. And when you take into consideration, you come out of Grove there, or depending on which direction you go in, you get the entrance to the big scheme there at Providence and not Providence, Mocha. You're going into you're going into the big scheme there. Not Mocha scheme, not Providence scheme. Diamond, the diamond scheme. So it's held to pass there and so forth. And the government said they're building all this road and they're building bridge. And the more they build the road, the more the thing getting jam up and squeeze up and tangle up. I don't think they're doing proper studies to decide where exactly we need road expansion. There are some places you definitely need. And then, we build big long road. And then on some of the big long road that they build, you don't get no traffic. And then the places that get the traffic, they ain't talking about no road. I am forever that juncture to get in and get out of the Harbor Bridge on the East Bank side. With all the infrastructure they're talking about, I'm waiting for them to solve that. So many hours are lost on that juncture. I'm waiting on them. If you do that, you're proving to me that you're thinking and that you're planning. It's not what you build, it's where you build. And when you finish building, the effect it is going to have. The East Coast Road. I mean, we have a 4-lane highway up to Annandale. I heard Jack Dew say, well, they couldn't laugh in the area. So he said, but they had to stop the 4-lane at Annandale. Because if they had gone through Buxton, they would have to pay people for all the land that they would have to take from them. He said they would have to pay people. I'm glad he know that. That if you're broken on with thing in Buxton, you got to pay. Buxton is not other place. Why he know that? He said they stopped the 4-lane highway on the East Coast at Annandale, which is true. They didn't go through Buxton because they said they would have to pay people whose land they would have to take. I didn't know that. But the point I was making was that despite the 4-lane highway and another 2-lane on the embankment is cactus and pepper when it's rush hour in the mornings and in the afternoons. I spent some time 2 hours in the afternoon to travel from Torkine, UG, to Buxton. A trip normally is about 20 minutes the most, 2 hours. And then when they're doing repairs on the road, slam blank in the traffic, not nighttime, the repairs doing in the traffic. The more we change, rearrange, the more things remain the same or get worse. More money, more blackout. More road, more traffic jam. It means that the government not thinking. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to Jamal Aziz, our friend from Region 5. Always on. The Aziz are always here. Loyal Rastaman. Elapai. And Joan and Bob. I noticed you're doing a lot of traveling. You're touring. See you putting up all kind of fancy places that you're visiting and so on. You're enjoying the retirement. Good evening to you, Lester Beckers. Always a pleasure to see some of you here. Audrey Brown, all of you. Gwendolyn, Vincent Davidson, Thomas Robertson, who is a co-owner of the show coming out there in Georgia. Lots of action in Georgia. Saw the vice president and their team or running mate. They were there in Georgia. Georgia is in play, and looks as though it's tilting in Kamala's direction. Quite a lot is going on there in American election. As I said, I'm cynical about American politics and really don't pay no mind. I'm just glad when I didn't and I don't have to be bombarded with American politics on a daily basis. But I like being bombarded with this kind of politics in America. This kind of politics, I like to be bombarded. And we've been saying on this program, we are for Kamala, and we are not supporting Kamala because of our policies. 50%, 60% of our policies we don't agree with. We are seeing the world from the standpoint of the Caribbean, Guyana. Kamala and American politicians see the world from the standpoint of America. And so their foreign policy and even their domestic policy arises out of that, and it sends those of us from the Caribbean and the so-called third world crazy. But this is not about Kamala's policies or foreign policy and so on. This is about who she is and what our election would mean for the psychological well-being of plenty people. Our friends on the other side, they say that people like me and Vincent Alexander and Eric Phillips, that we and Henry Jeffrey, they call us memory warriors, and they say that our rhetoric is going to lead Black people to break up Guyana and to beat up Indian people. That if we continue to tell Black people about their history and to agree with Black people that they're being oppressed, that would lead Black people to break up the country and beat up Indians. But it's the iPass, that Black people stupid and ignorant. All they need is David Hines to say, you all are being oppressed, and they will jump on the road and start beat up Indians. That's what they think of Black people. But I say, Black people are the least violent people in the world. They are the most non-violent people. I am telling you, no ethnic group would go through 200 to 400 years of enslavement and come out of that crazy and walking around the place and beating up. That Black people don't walk around the place and beat up people after 400 years of enslavement. Say something about the non-violent nature of our people. If 400 years did not make us foolishly violent, as they are thinking that we are foolishly violent. If 400 years didn't make me foolishly violent, we are the most non-violent people in the world. Most non-violent people in the world. And I got there because I was saying, when Obama won, he steady we had as Black people. And if Kamala win again, if Kamala win coming up, that will do a lot to steady Black people head. Because slavery done, but we still got to fight off slave masters. They're messing with we head. And so, if Kamala wins, it will do a lot to straighten us and to give us hope. Our own Eddie Grant said, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope. Give me hope, Kamala, give me hope. He gives us hope that we're not going down the tube without a fight and that we're staying alive in this hostile world that seems not to want us around anymore, but we are here. Anyhow, we're ready. I was just holding the fort, getting you all situated, all of you all who come running into class, ready, because the doc is here. Good evening to you from Maryland, one of my homes. How are you all doing down there, up there in Maryland? Mr. Westmore, how is he treating you all there in Maryland? You all know you all got turned over. You all got turned over that governorship. Not the governorship, the senator seat. You all got turned that over. Notice there's a fight there, but that seat in a blue state really should go to the Democrats. So you all got buck up there. There. All right. I think we're ready. I think enough of you are there. There are a couple of seats still to be filled, and people are running late. Good evening, Dr. Adams.
Hey, good evening, my good friend Dr. Hines. I'm glad to be back and with our wonderful audience here again. But I've got to scold you a little bit here to start with.
Yes.
I noticed you forget to again mention Christian Borg. I noticed you said Mackenzie and Wismore and I left out Christian Borg. Here, but in all seriousness, though, hey, first of all, let me say, now I'm even more motivated to make sure that I stay friends with you because you might walk around and want to beat me up because I'm a little Indian in me.
I mean, Doc, how can people spout those nonsense, educated people, and don't know what they're saying?
Exactly. It's just so pathetic. I am telling you, a lot of times you wonder how to respond to those type of things. It's just as if you're bringing yourself to that level of foolishness. You know what I mean? It's just absolute nonsense. But for the other serious matter that you touched on in terms of the traffic and there is no planning, Dr. Hines.
Yes.
We've got an influx of, I can't remember, somebody had told me how many thousands of cars or automobiles per week or per month, but we do not have the roads or infrastructure to accommodate it. We just willy-nilly deciding where we're going to build a highway here, we're going to build that bridge. Like you touched on something that is very important. Those things take a lot of time to plan. If you notice, I know even in the United States, before they build highways, they've got a kind of a wire across the road that you roll over. They're measuring traffic to see the intensity of traffic, the time to determine where do they construct these roads and what type of roads. When I hear, and I heard the same thing you heard about this Buxton thing and not able to pass through Buxton for the highway because they're gonna have to pay folks for removal of their buildings. Well, Dr. Hines, tell me something. Are they saying that they didn't have to pay people in Annandale?
Thank you very much.
And those other places? Is that what
Thank you.
is that what they're trying to make to tell us? I know the East Coast Road very well. You know it better than I do. Aren't there? I mean, do you see less space on that highway on the road in Buxton as compared to Annandale and those other Indian occupied places? So I don't understand. These people really believe that we're fools. Here's the other thing. The only thing that everything now is a 4-lane highway. That's fine. I applaud them for it. But again, we get back to proper planning. However, the most important road, especially since we're going to be opening the big road from Brazil, is the Linden Highway that has stood up the test of times. That requires more than any place else a 4-lane road. Guess what? All they're saying now that they're going to rehabilitate it or whatever the hell the word is going to use. But there's no talk about a 4-lane road, which was what was in the plan of the coalition government. So all this stuff here with no 4-lane road for Linden Soesdijk. However, there's a 4-lane road on the highway, but you cannot put it through Buxton because you got to pay people in Buxton.
Yeah.
The vice president need to tell the Guyanese people that he's not paying the people for taking their property for the highway that has to pass through places like Annandale. That is what That is what I would like to for him
Yeah,
to
yeah.
explain to
But
the
you
folks.
see, you see the insinuation there is that when these highways are passing through certain communities, you either don't pay people properly, eh,
Yeah,
or the other alternative in not paying people properly is not to let the road pass through there.
yeah.
I know something about Buxton, and yes, you would have had to push back some buildings, but you could have gotten a 3-lane highway there, if not a 4-lane highway. You could have gotten a 3-lane highway there without having to move people's property. But the solution is no highway for you all, because you all would have demand money, and we want to pay you all the money you all would have demand for us moving your buildings.
But Dr. Hanks, even that argument there, it's in terms they use that. But this whole thing about we don't want to pay folks in Buxton, it goes back to this pattern. As to the bridge at Eccles, you remember the whole. What was our aunt? What's her name again? The lady that stood up to them. You remember
Yes, Vashti.
Vashni? You remember across the street from Vashni, they were paying this guy,
Yes,
an Indian guy, $55 million and wanted to pay Vashni and those folks across the other side 15 or 20, whatever the number is, which was way less. So that is the pattern, Dr. Hines. So I wonder what they're paying the Annandale folks, and then now they don't want to pay anybody in Buxton, but it's fine to pay people in Annandale and those other places. So it's a pattern, Dr. Hines. It's that we saw our hero or heroine Vachni exposed. So it's the pattern.
it's the pattern. And there is some out open story jump out. The thing about Jack Dio is that he yap so much
Yep.
that there are things that you today he said, oh, well, the government is and 2 weeks later, you don't have to doing nothing.
Yep.
It's yap, and the truth does come out.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that you had been telling them about for the longest while is this onboard oil and gas
Yep.
monitoring. From a layman standpoint, they're saying that when they're doing the oil and gas, you got to dip on the boat with them there. You got to be out there with them. And then the other one way of doing it, I guess, is using satellites, so you don't have to go out there and so on and so. And you were saying the satellite thing is not the car gadget. It's better to do the onboard. And I remember how the one lift up Eret Frack and carrying on. And then quietly the other day, he admit that the onboard thing talk to us.
Yeah, well, but just to give you just a little bit of history on when I was at EPA, the first thing we did, because we know how important it is, you cannot trust these contractors, especially companies such as Exxon, and they've proven it. I can give you all kinds of examples all over the world and in Guyana, by the way. So we decided we will have people on board, which is the way that we do it in the United States. We do not trust our contractors, and the one we use it. We said 99% of the times, what the contractor tells you, 99% of the time, that's not what's happening on board. So we normally train folks to be on board. So the EPA with the World Bank established a petroleum unit within the EPA with starting with a 36-member team that was going to be filled with high-powered professionals trained in petroleum engineering and geology, compatible with the needs of monitoring. And we also developed what we call a study leave policy, where we're going to sponsor staff to go to any university they want to be trained. And when they come back, they're going to give us a 5-year service. All of that they scrapped. They denied it until the front page, until the cover of the document, the World Bank document appeared. That same Barrett, he denied it. The executive director denied it until the front page of the document appeared. And guess what they did? Here was their solution. They went and they decided to take all of Exxon files and lock it up into the executive director's office so that not even the staff could gain access to it. So that was their solution. Well, now what I've heard, they've put it back in the file, but they've got all these big cameras. So they're monitoring the employees. They want to see who's touching Exxon's files, and that's the kind of thing that our people are now living with in a government employee. So you could imagine you yourself, Dr. Hines, or anybody else working in an organization such as a government entity, and they're monitoring you with cameras because they don't trust what you do. So that's the kind of thing that so now, Bharat, when I was saying we need people on board, which is what we are planning for, he said, "Oh, that's nonsense. We're gonna monitor with satellite," which was all foolishness because satellite you can't see through the cover of the building where everything takes place under the roof or stuff. And then they say, "Well, we're gonna see when there's an all sheen occur if there's a spill." Well, that would be too late to begin with, whether you can see that all sheen or not, depending on the cover and everything else, the cloud cover. But so that was the foolishness until recently now, when he talks about the metering, the independent meter, he says, as a matter of fact, I'm going to quote him here. This is Barrett, Minister Barrett. He said the whole issue about the independent meter is monitoring. You want us to know, you want us to know what is happening offshore. Listen to this now, Dr. Hein. We control the meter because the Ghana Natural Bureau of Standards, if they are not there, the meter cannot flow. It can't turn on, which means what he's saying now, if they do not have people on board, production will be shut down. That's what he's saying. That if they don't have the GNSB people on board monitoring, the operation will be shut down. However, with the EPA now, they used to say, "Well, we don't need anybody on board. We're gonna monitor." So now they've turned their mouths around, and so I want to know, why aren't they doing the same thing for the EPA folks, which is much more consequential, Dr. Hines, to have people protecting the safety to stop any type of upset that would cause an oil spill, for us to be there to make sure they're following procedures, etc. So that's the kind of stupidity that you hear from these folks. But the oil meter is one thing. Now they've got people on board that they said, we don't want anybody on board. We're gonna have a fiber optic cable to sit in our office onshore and look at it. Well, so now all of that nonsense now, when I was saying all this, they've reverted back to where we were as a college when we were in office, to have people on board. So they've kind of, but we've got to expose them and not let them get away with these type of things secret. But like you said, they can't help themselves because they get trapped. So in defending themselves, they expose themselves at the same time. So that is what's going on with them.
Yes, in case you're just joining us, Dr. Vincent Adams is here, and we're talking everything and all things that have to do with the political economy. We started off, of course, talking about the foolishness that some of us are on social media and off social media are socializing Black people to beat up Indian people and so on, and they've singled me out. And Mr. Rafi Dev the other night was telling me that I'm a chief, I'm a presidential candidate, and I'm the co-leader of a party, and I must moderate my rhetoric in keeping with my office. And I tell you, you go and tell them, who are the president and vice president and ministers of the government, those who have institutional power, you go and tell them to moderate their behavior. And when you tell them, then come back and talk to me. You see, they are trying to talk to us who are the victims of oppression. Oh, don't fight back. Accept your oppression. I think that's what the slave master used to tell the enslaved. So they're telling, David Hines, don't socialize your people because they're going to beat up Indians. No, I want to know at Lusignan after the 2020 election and at Bad Settlement, I want to know who were beating up and chasing police, who were stoning children, who were burning tires and go on. The fact of the matter is that any ethnic group who feels that it is wrong they take action. Dr. Martin Luther King says these people in protesting, they want to be heard. And that goes for people of any ethnic and racial group. But these people in Guyana say whenever you have ethnic confrontation and ethnic violence, it's black people beating up Indians. The history doesn't show that. As Brother Yusuf Quina said, in these matters, there is no guilty race. So when Indian people beat up and broke up and burn up in 2020, they silence it. It never happens. Unless we talk about it. They don't talk about it because remember they create this narrative that black people by our very nature be ignorant and stupid and violent. All you got to get is David Hines to tell them, you're oppressed. And they're going to go out and start beat up people. That is what they are saying about us, black people. And they're saying that to get people like us to shut up. Because what they want is to subdue black people. Because if you want to take over a place and run the place and dominate that place, you have to subdue the dominated. And these people get good sense. Jack Dio said the other day that they stopped the East Coast 4-lane highway at Annandale, just before Buxton. Because if they had carried the 4-lane through Buxton, they would have had to pay a lot of money to people. Now, what is it that gentleman is saying? That Mr. Gentleman. That Mr. What is he saying there? That is what Doc and I are talking about. You can pay big money to people in certain villages. But when it comes to a place like Buxton, you end even contemplating paying them money so that the highway can pass through there. They deserve no big money. And so the alternative is that you skip them and you're going to continue the 4-lane highway somewhere. Now, those of us who are from Buxton, we know what that means. If you have 4-lane traffic, heavy traffic coming down the road, and you get to Buxton, which is now 2-lane, what happens? Every day, for most of the day, there is traffic jam going through Buxton. And I was wondering the other day, what's causing this? And then Jagdio explained to me what is causing, because it makes sense. If 4-lane highway comes, you come down to 2-lane, traffic jam, and it's a heavily populated village. Children and old people. I stand up one day, it took me 10 minutes to cross the road. Doc, 10 minutes to cross the road because the traffic, clearly people are irritated, nobody is stopping for let you pass.
It's called bottlenecking in the highway. It's called bottlenecking. So when you bottleneck at Buxton, everything's shut down. It's everything bottlenecks. It doesn't make sense. But again, don't let us forget the bigger picture here, Dr. Hines. It's not. It doesn't even stop at the village in itself. Even within the village, like I said at Eccles, right across the street, people in the same village.
Yes.
With the one person with a dilapidated house getting 55 million, but across the street, for a much better house, they're getting, I think it was 20 million or whatever the number is. So I mean, the discrimination is just, you got to be blind to not see it. I mean, that is the whole picture. But how could you, like you said, you're gonna build a highway from Georgetown, I think, all the way to Mahika or Maikoni, and Buxton happened to be the only place. Buxton happened to be the only, with all, by the way, with all of them curves and bends, which means, unless you build a 4-lane, which means you're gonna a 4-lane, you're not gonna want to go around those 90-degree angle curve. You're gonna bust it right through, which means there's a lots of other villages where you gotta pay people. And I bet you, but you're saying we're gonna have to pay Buxtonians. So are you not paying them other people that you gotta bust through the villages? But is Buxton the only place from Georgetown to Mahika, Maikoni? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The traffic is something else there in Buxton. I came out of my car across the street going to Sir Dion Abrams. Cross, I go over to Dion. When I finish with Dion to cross back to my car, cross the river, 10 minutes. Is a lady recognized me and said, I jump in the lady said, Dr. Hines, pass. And she stopped. So as I tell my friends all the time, sometimes the well-known thing just get to you because you don't have any privacy anywhere you go. People recognize you. You got mind how you peeing. You got mind how you pee. But there are times, and that was one of the time the lady stopped and she said, Dr. Hines, pass, but you blow. So I said, me? She said, yes, Dr. Hines, go, pass. And that's how 10 minutes on that road.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to endure in Buxton. You see, I like now, sir, seven, the traffic heavy there. And all because Jack Dio and them decide they ain't going to pay people for shifting back their buildings. So they're going to punish Buxtonians by don't putting in any road there. My goodness. And then they tell you to prove the racial discrimination to prove. Doc, this selection of Fulcrum, this is the company that is going to monetize the Gas to Show project. I notice that you say he ain't got no contact in the company. Well, tell us something about this company and tell us whether it is going to be to our advantage or not.
Well, I can tell you what the international standard is.
All right.
When I worked for the U.S. government, we had a matter of fact, we could not we when I leave my let's say I retire. In my retirement, there was always a cooling off period where you can join another company of 2 years, and then even then certain information, you cannot be on certain contracts and all kinds of stuff. This guy who worked with Exxon for 19 years, Dr. Hines, I think was a vice president, way up. He formed a company last year, February. And the guy decided immediately, he formed a Fulcrum company, and immediately he gets a contract. So here's what Jagdio says, well, when this is a clear case of a conflict of interest. It may not be illegal, but it's definitely a conflict of interest. So here's the forked tongue that this guy speaks with. How he gets, you remember, the worst thing that ever happened was when Nigel Hughes is working for a law firm that represents Exxon. You remember how long Jagdio and how we crucified Nigel Hughes? Nigel Hughes said no, he's not going to be involved in anything. At least he says that. This guy is not like exempting himself or recusing himself from anything. This guy, Dr. This guy is, listen to this. This guy is a one-man company. The guy is the CEO. He's the secretary. He's the treasurer. He's the director and the president of this company. So he formed it last year. The company is registered in Nevada, Texas, not even in Guyana. I mean, the man take Yaisa for past Guyana so much. He didn't even say, well, okay, let me register it in Guyana. The company's head office is in Nevada, the United States. The man is a one-man show. I think they said that based on the report, he's hired maybe one person. But he's every single title in the executive position. He owns those titles. So the guy comes on board, and then listen to what Jagdio says. He defends it. He said VP defends the award, insisting that the founder, which is this guy, has years of experience in the field through his former employment with Exxon. He was there with Exxon a long time, a project developer for a long time. And we're going to get to another project, which is the waste project at Coverdale.
At Coverdale, right.
Where you had two people. Well, there's one person, almost the same exact situation. This Jetsu guy, who's a lumber guy, don't have any clue as to how to manage, no oil and gas waste management experience. However, Jaggi and them defending this guy just coming out of the timber business and forming this company to manage oil and gas waste. Where the hell is this experience that Jaglio said that he's backing this guy because this guy, well, forget about conflicts that this guy from Exxon has. He's got the experience because he worked for Exxon, which is a clear conflict. But however, it doesn't matter experience with this Jetsu guy that we're gonna get to. So this here is a clear conflict of interest, Dr. Hines. And now I see like they're trying to wiggle out of it because I read in today's newspapers that I think the president has been meeting with Sunak, and Sunak is interested in being involved in monetization of the oil of the gas project. So we're gonna see where it goes from there. But that's the kind of forked tongue that this vice president and the rest of them speak with, and the hypocrisy, and they really don't care, Dr. Hines. They really don't care. So here's a guy. He's coming with. The guy's been. Who knows? The guy's a loyal Exxon employee, 19 years, and it's by no coincidence that he just leaves Exxon to form this company to monetize our operation. I mean, how foolish could you get, regardless, even if you're not thinking about conflict of interest? Would you? I mean, you know how Exxon, well, of course, they really Exxon running the show anyway. But if you were interested in, if you've got interest in the interest of your country and your people, you gotta be dumb as hell to be allowing that type of thing to happen with people to come in and manage your money who, and they're sitting on the other side of the table with you. They were working for the same team that is now sitting across from the table to negotiate and to run the whole operation, to design, to do every damn thing. So there might be something else going on there, Dr. Himes.
Well, of course.
There's other things going on there. This is not just a willy-nilly thing. It looks too precise and well orchestrated. So we might be saying that it's willy-nilly, but who knows what else is behind what is happening here.
What else is happening there? Tell us a little bit more about that landfill story.
Oh gosh, that's the story, and I am so proud of the folks in the COVID Soesdijk here. And by the way, let me make these folks aware that I've got very deep roots in that area. Right across, there's a little trench that divides Coverdale from Soesdijk. And I've got deep roots in just maybe 100 yards or so across that trench. Matter of fact, I remember as a little boy, I used to jump the trench when I go to Soesdijk to spend time with, because the Charles are my first cousin. So they live right across there.
Right, yes. The
So
brother that died from the army the other day.
That's exactly correct. Yes. And my siblings went to that school, so we've got very deep roots there. So let them be aware that I intend to be deeply involved in this. And they will be hearing from me in the media.
So tell our audience what really the issue is.
Well, here's the issue. This the company attempted in 2021 to go put up a waste treatment facility at Coverdale without even doing an express. Well, the EPA, sorry for poor EPA, because this EPA and the government, of course, it's driven by the government, it's become a no EIA government. So they say, well, okay, we're not going to even do an EIA because this thing doesn't pose any hazard. They decide to ram it down the people's throat to put this facility there. The people rebelled. The company that was going through this decided, hey, you know what, we're going to give this thing up. So they decide not to transfer the permit over to the, I think it's Jetu's guy, who's a timber person, has no experience. Timber business is no management of a waste treatment facility of this nature with a high hazard facility, maybe even containing radioactive waste coming from the ship. We do not have a clue as to what type of waste that is. We've never seen this waste in Guyana. So here's a guy who was managing timber. If you go to the website, Dr. Hines, there's no big, you can see that there's a rush to put together a website. It has two people in the company. Remember the guy I told you that was one for two people. The guy Mahendra Jetsu, he's the CEO, and I guess there's a female person. I can't. It was she's also Jetsu, and they have a blank photo space without their picture. So that and they have no other person who has any experience. But here's the other part, Dr. Hein. In these facilities, the process is you have to know the waste that comes off, wherever the origin of the waste. You got to define every single aspect of that waste, every single chemical compound that comes in. And based upon that, then you design the system to treat that waste based on the waste, the concentration of the contaminant. That's how you design your system. They do not, none of that ever happened. They just build a facility and nobody knows what the heck that facility is gonna do, because there's no, there's no relationship between the waste and the facility. That's obvious. And then when that waste is treated, there's lots of residual material. Waste does not go away. And then they're talking about, well, this slag, because it's going to be some high temperature stuff. And here's another foolishness. They say, well, it's going to be a non-incineration process. I have never seen anybody describe any process as non-something, instead of saying this is what the process is. But I suspect, I know there's a process called pyrolysis. I think which is about, you got to take it up to about 800 degrees to so it's high temperature. So you're dealing with high temperature with dangerous materials. That is a recipe for a disaster if you don't know what the heck you're doing. And then when you treat that waste, Dr. Hines, it forms that, into slag, thick slag like a glass. So they're already saying that this slag will be used for recycling of brick and that type of stuff that you're going to be using for your home and those type of things. Well, that is absolute rubbish again. Before you can do that in like countries such as the United States, you've got to go through a system of testing to make sure there's no leaching when you add acid or water to it. So they don't have a clue, and they want to ram it down the throats of everybody. But here's a key part in general that is happening here. When I was at EPA, what Exxon was doing, Dr. Hines, they were generating all this waste that Guyana has no clue what this waste is, and they're handing it over to these treatment facilities in Guyana. Tiger Rentals was one of those. And then they wash their hands from that waste. They say, well, we hand it over to you. That's it. We have no more responsibility. I said, wait, time out. Absolutely not. We demand that you have what is called a cradle to grave policy and a plan for us, which means that Exxon, you own that waste from the time it's generated to the time it's disposed of in a safe and environmentally sound manner. And then you hear Jagdio coming out after, oh, this is the first time that we've had a cradle to grave management process. It was never introduced before I arrived. So I had even been part of the fourth draft. And of course, when I left, I don't know what the heck happened, whether we even have a cradle to grave management plan. And then even the landfill, Dr. Hayes, is what Guyanese need to know. We have a landfill there at Higgs Bosch. That is not a landfill. It meets no basic requirement. And I've said this publicly, by the way, even as an EPA director, I've said that we should have never approved such a landfill. It's in the water table, and that never happened. So we're gonna be putting that waste, that's all the waste that is generated from this facility into that landfill that is inadequately designed. We rejected the application, Dr. Hines, and people ought to know this. The coalition, the EPA under the coalition rejected the application to expand that landfill to accept waste coming off from the oil and gas operations. We rejected it because we know that landfill was inadequate and the treatment was inadequate. Guess what? All of that was scrapped. As soon as I left, they removed that rejection. They have accepted the waste, I mean, accepted the application and given them the permit. And now, so it's the whole ball of wax here that we're dealing with. And the other thing, and lastly, there's something called environmental injustice.
Mhm.
Environmental injustice. It's no coincidence that all of these hazardous facilities are going to Coverdale. It's going on the East Bank where this hazardous waste facility is. You can, yeah, and you can name it. All I when you do an EIA, you look at the options,
Mhm.
and rather than here's my challenge. Let's do an EIA, and you don't look at Coverdale alone. Let's look at Pradoville, not DIA, not COVID. Let's look at Pradoville and all of the exquisite places that those ministers live when they've got property. Let's look at those also to see if they're more suitable and see how they're gonna accept it. We gotta stop because this here is a start of things that we need to nip it into the bud. We've learned our lessons in places such as the United States, where certain communities, because of what had happened in the past, certain communities the prevalence of certain diseases are much more than other places because of the locations of these hazardous facilities. And with Guyana in its development, because of the money we're getting, we need to nip this into the bud and make sure that when we put the locations for these places, we do not preferentially select these poor communities to put it in there because they're poor people and we don't care anything about their lives. Let's go consider in the mix Pradoville and Lenora and those places. That's something that is very important as we move forward that people need to pay attention to environmental injustice. And because of the past history in the United States, they said we had to put into law a lot of programs to make sure that that doesn't happen. When you select a place, you don't just go dump it into a poor neighborhood.
Environmental injustice, and there's also the term environmental racism to go along with certain racially certain ethnic and racial groups live in these
Yeah,
areas, and then certain groups that are poor people of all races. So
yeah.
environmental injustice, environmental racism. That we can't go without getting your take on the teachers, the package that was forced upon the teachers union and that a section of the leadership of the teachers union accepted. Talk to us.
It was one of the most depressing news that I received, and I'm sure you and most of Guyana, as a matter of fact, after 75 days in the streets, and then you get down to the point where it's in the leadership of the union, it was divided. Could you imagine the division in those teachers? Could you imagine these teachers who are going back to work, how they feel? There is no, it's just if the teaching profession is going to die away in Guyana. The most important to me, it's the foundation of any country's development is to make sure that your teachers are, they've got the motivation, they're interested in teaching. But that is not the case. But this government does not care. They do not understand that. The only foolishness you hear all the time is this online program. What is it called again?
Goal.
Gold. That gold. That's all they keep bragging about. How much money they're spending on gold. These kids, Dr. Hine, these kids, we've talked about it so many times. Those and those formative years, it's the most important years in everybody's lives. We all know it. You and I went through it, even though we came through poor communities. It was those teachers that grounded us and molded us. Those teachers spend more quality time with kids than the parents.
Yeah.
Because when you go home at night, when you go home, your parents just come from work, you gone to bed. Your teachers are there with you all day. They're the ones who mold you. But I don't know if it's just through ignorance. But I guess it's really not it because you see the upper echelons within government who make the rules, their kids are going to these private schools. It doesn't they're getting their big, people like Priya Manichan I think I read someplace her salary is like $1.8 million. She's got a chauffeur, she's got a house, she's got everything. And her kids go to private school, and she's just an example. So they really don't care about poor folks. They put all the money in the infrastructure again, where their folks get the hog. 60%, 58% of our budget is going to these 5% or so contractors who are their families and friends. And all they need to do, run the calculation, to give them a 50% raise, which is a decent raise, because 9,000 or 60 plus percent, 9,000 of these teachers are making 100,000 Guyana dollars per month. So you cannot come with less than 50% for me. But even with the 50%, all that would take is $2 billion out of that infrastructure budget. And that would, I mean, 14 billion. And all that would leave them with still 652 billion, even though that's just ridiculous. But so it's just the greed to make sure that they get everything. But the biggest foundation for any country's development is being neglected, and that's the dilemma that we're in this country, and that's where the money is going. But it's very disappointing and depressing, Dr. Hines, that this is where we are, and we're gonna. Could you imagine, Dr. Hines, who is gonna want even go into teaching
That's
anymore?
right. That's right.
And in addition to the teachers who are currently there, they're going to be leaving. They're going to be looking for opportunities to leave. So that's where we are, and it's a sad state of affairs for the future of Guyana, because that's where the future is. As I said, where the molding of a nation takes place. It's in those formative years at school.
Dr. Vincent Adams, my brother, thank you very much for another Friday evening, helping us to make sense of the nonsense in our country and giving our people hope. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on Sunday evening.
Hey, Doctor, and before we leave, I'm heading to DC this week, so I want to get in contact with that lady to get those fancy shorts that you got.
Okay, all right. I'll send.
I gotta get hip like you. You know, I gotta keep up with you.
I'll send her information to you.
All right, good.
Thank you very much. Dr. Adams is talking about Buxton Chic. I advertised her here a couple of months ago, and there was a barrage of orders. So Buxton Chic there, Genevieve Battersfield. Genevieve Battersfield Adams in Maryland. I will share that information with Doc, and I'll run another ad soon on our small business there. I want to thank all of you for staying with us for another evening, another week, and it's Labor Day weekend. It's Labor Day weekend, so you're all going to nice up a bit. Those of you who are in New York certainly would be there in Brooklyn doing your thing. So here's wishing everyone a rollicking weekend, and there's the folk festival and all that stuff going on there in New York. Represent Guyana, represent the Caribbean, and I will see you all here again. The show will go on because you'll have enough time to go out in the parkway and come back home and catch Politics 101 at 7 o'clock. So thank you all again, and see you on Monday.